I know that some parents frequently, when we're involved in studies of this sort, want to know exactly what time their first grader is going to be picked up and where the pickup point will be and so forth, but that's well beyond the scope of this study, quite frankly. So we strongly recommend that immediately after a merger, if it were to occur, that a study of the transportation routing be conducted. In the meantime, existing routes with maybe some minor modifications be run, but that a study be done to conclude and recommend to the new Board of Education what's the best routing pattern that should it be a double trip, a single trip, given where the youngsters are and where the schools are and so forth. But again, that was beyond the scope of this work. And we also recommended, you can see in number 14, that it should include the routing pattern so that there's no youngster is on the bus any longer than that recommended 1 hour a day. And the transportation supervisors, when they met together and met with us, they looked at their existing routing pattern, said that they believe that's very doable. So they know their routes much better than we will ever know that, and we believe, and they believe, and have assured us that that is a doable recommendation. Ellen took a very in-depth look at the staffing in the districts and will now present an overview of the staffing patterns.
I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about staffing, and then Bill is going to finish up the presentation talking about the finances of the potential merger. What I'm going to do is lead into much of Bill's presentation because these two sections of the report are very closely connected. Education and schools are very labor-intensive organizations. We can talk about the cost of textbooks and we can talk about the cost of basketball uniforms and all that other stuff, but the reality of it is that school district budgets, about 70% of most school district budgets, are in personnel costs. Salaries and fringe benefits for staff. Schools are labor-intensive organizations. So as I talk through the staffing, I'm going to try to equate some of this to the financial impact of some of our conversations, and Bill will pick up on that as he finishes up with finances. One of the things that we did was to analyze the labor contracts in both districts. And what we found, whether we analyzed the teacher contracts or the support staff contracts, what we found was that there, like most districts, there clearly are differences in the two contracts. There's no question about that. Some benefit levels are a little higher in one district, some are a little higher in the other district. We already saw that the work days are a little bit different. But from a grander perspective, what we also found was that while there are differences, the labor contracts are much more alike than they are different. We do not anticipate that the negotiation of new labor contracts, should the districts decide to merge, would present an insurmountable problem because they are actually quite similar. One of the things, however, that we did look at is the whole area of teacher salaries. And what we found was that the salary schedule in South Seneca is, generally speaking, higher than the salary schedule in Romulus. When school districts merge, it has been customary to level up the teacher salaries from the lower paying school district to the higher paying school district. There is no requirement that that happens. There's no requirement that that happens in 1 year. It can happen over time. Mergers that have taken place in a very different economy than we are facing today. So we don't want to lead anyone to believe that this notion of raising the lower paid teachers to the higher paid teachers is automatic, is a good idea. That's totally up to the unions and the new school district to decide. However, while it has happened in the past, and while we tend to make our projections about finances on the conservative side, we have actually done the calculation of what it would cost to raise the Romulus teachers from their lower salary schedule to the higher salary schedule in South Seneca. And what we have found is that if we moved all of those teachers up that would be an additional cost for salaries for the merged district of $90,000. We then added another 21% on top of that for retirement costs, Social Security costs, workers' compensation costs for fringe benefits. So that's another $19,000. Bottom line, if you put the salary figure together with the fringe benefit figure, it's about a cost of about $109,000 if the salaries of the Romulus teachers were to be leveled up. So our recommendation number 15 is that as soon as possible, right after the merger, the new Board of Education should recognize employee bargaining units and unions with whom to negotiate new contracts. Those contracts should be negotiated for the new school district. Pretty obvious recommendation, but that's certainly one of the things that has to happen should a merger occur. Second thing, now going back to what I talked about in my program piece, and what we found is that we believe that staff efficiencies could be achieved at the secondary level if the school districts were to merge. And we have estimated that perhaps 2 fewer high school teachers would be needed after a merger. Again, going back to my English curriculum example at the high school before, no class size having more than 22 students. So what we did is we looked at each of the subject areas again at the high school, and these are the numbers that we said we could have 5 fewer English sections, 9 fewer social studies sections, etc. We then said we understand that no school district can schedule at 100% efficiency. It's just not possible. It's room utilization, it's kids having to get in classes that they may have to repeat, it's which kids are going to BOCES. You just can't do it at 100%. So we said, okay, let's assume that you can reschedule in a merged district at an 80% level. We then just took 80% of these sections that could be saved, and here are the new numbers. So even at 80% efficiency of scheduling in a merged district, we still believe we could save 44 sections. If a teacher's daily schedule is 5 to 6 classes a day, we believed that you could possibly reduce a social studies position, a math position, and a science position, 3 different positions. However, what the committee talked with us about is the fact that there was a half-time science teacher and a half-time social studies teacher position that were already reduced for this school year. So instead of recommending that these 3 positions might be reduced, we took into account the position for 2012-13 that's already been reduced, half plus a half, and we said, okay, we believe, therefore, you can save 2 high school teaching positions. We know that looking at salary data from both districts, the cost, if you will, of a teacher for salary and fringe benefits on average is about $75,000 for salary and benefits. So if we do in fact save 2 fewer teachers, we believe that a savings of about $150,000 could be realized by merging the schools and having section sizes that were a little bit larger. And again, this is what we're talking about at 80%. Again, I would remind you that we're taking out only parts of social studies, math, and science. And all of these other extra sections could all be turned into new and additional courses for the kids. So that's where these things come together. More program opportunities and the opportunity to save in the area of $150,000 from 2 teaching positions. We also looked at coaching salaries and stipends for clubs and extracurricular activities. We combined the salaries for Romulus staff and for South Seneca staff And as we compared the salaries for drama coaches and Spanish clubs, we found again that there were differences. However, we don't believe that there would be much impact at all on the cost of paying coaches or club advisors should there be a merger. You can see we're talking in the realm of $109,000 for leveling up teacher salaries. We're talking about $150,000 savings by perhaps not having 2 teaching positions. If this were this could go $10,000 higher, it could go $10,000 lower, depending on what clubs and sports are offered. Bottom line, we don't see this as having a material financial impact on the merger with respect to the stipends for athletics and clubs. The next few slides are going to talk about the elimination of some duplication, some efficiencies, because we would have 1 school district instead of 2 school districts. And the first thing that we look at here are administrative salaries and benefits. Currently, Romulus has 3.8 administrators. South Seneca has 6 administrators. Together, the 2 districts have 9.8 administrators, whose salaries and fringe benefits, South Seneca, together are about $1.2 million. This is with the 9.8 administrators that are currently on staff in both districts. We believe that, that if the districts were to merge, the administrative staffing could be 1 superintendent. If we have 1 school district, we currently have 2 superintendents because we have 2 school districts. But if we had 1 school district, we would need 1 superintendent. So we believe in a merged district, we could have 1 superintendent instead of 2. We could have 1 business official, 1 director of pupil personnel services, an elementary principal in Interlaken. Bill talked about that being an elementary school. An elementary middle school principal in Romulus. An elementary middle school assistant principal in Romulus. A high school principal and a high school assistant principal in South Seneca. That's a total of 8 administrative positions. We believe that's very adequate to handle the administration of a merged district. And just to go back, by reducing the number of administrators from the 9.8 currently to the 8 that I just reviewed, we would be looking at a savings in salaries and benefits of about $290,000.